Hi everyone, it's Rebecca from The Healthy Gut, and I'm so excited to be here today to share with you the full results following the elemental diet treatment that I did in September. Before I share the full results with you, I just wanted to recap on why I decided to do the elemental diet. So I've sadly got relapsing SIBO. I have a gut that is full of adhesions and scar tissue, and it's constricting my small intestine, which means the bacteria can continue to overgrow. I continue to get SIBO, and this puts a lot of pressure on my system. It also helps to flare up some of my other conditions. So for me, treating SIBO is actually managing SIBO rather than looking for that holy grail of clearing it once and for all and never having it come back. Until, of course, I get rid of the adhesions through visceral mobilization therapy. If you'd like to know more about that, check out my podcast on the Healthy Gut podcast with Alyssa Tate. She is my therapist, and we talk all about how that works, how you assess it, how you uncover if you've got adhesions, and what you can do about them. So I had 3 key objectives going into the elemental diet. The first, obviously, was to clear or reduce my SIBO. But more importantly for me was to reduce my inflammation. When I have SIBO, my inflammation increases, and I also have another condition called hemochromatosis, which gets really inflamed and aggravated when my SIBO is high. Hemochromatosis is a genetic condition in me. It can be environmental in some people, but for me, I've got the genetic mutation, lucky me, whereby my body thinks I'm not getting enough iron. And so it stores way too much iron. And so my iron levels, my saturation and my ferritin are incredibly elevated. And the risk for this is that you can end up with organ failure. So it's not a great condition to have at all. It puts a lot of pressure on your organs. Now, organs are already under a lot of pressure when we've got SIBO. So I really wanted to calm that down. And then the third thing I wanted to achieve out of the elemental diet was to lose some weight. I am one of those people that when I have SIBO, my weight just balloons right out. And I had put on about 15 kilos, which I think is about 30 pounds in the last 12 months. So that's a big increase for somebody who isn't going out and eating McDonald's every day. And it's really frustrating when you can't get the weight off. So let's share the full results. So let's start with the weight. What happened with my weight? My doctor and I decided that I would purposely undereat my caloric requirements for each day so that I could be in a deficit and my body could hopefully lose some weight. And I did. So over the 14 days of the elemental diet, I lost 6 kilos, which is about 12 pounds. And I was really happy with this. I felt a lot better from it. My clothes were a lot looser and my waist circumference had reduced. Now, I want to lose weight not because I'm trying to be a magazine model, but because I want to be in a healthy weight for my height. I want my organs to have less visceral fat surrounding them and none of that bad fat that clogs up our organs and leads to disease. And I just want to feel better in myself as well. So I lost 6 kilos. I know a lot of you will be thinking, yeah, but what happened when you started eating again? So I spent about 6 weeks reintroducing foods. I started on bone broth, chicken bone broth. I can tolerate chicken bone broth. Some of you might need to start with a chicken meat broth. And then I slowly added in one vegetable at a time, starting with carrots and zucchini and vegetables I knew worked really well for me. And I lived on soups and then stews for several weeks before slowly reintroducing more solid food and ultimately salads. And over that time, I sat somewhere about 1 to 2 kilos heavier than the final weight I was with the elemental diet. And I was fine with that because I had food going through my system. I then went off to South Africa for a 2-week holiday, and I was a little bit nervous about that because I wasn't sure how my system would go. My doctor and I were very precautious, so I took a lot of herbs in case I got sick. And I'm really happy to report nothing happened. I was eating salads and raw food and foods that are generally a lot harder for the gut to digest on the trip. But I did gain weight because I wasn't controlling my food as strictly like I was when I was cooking for myself. I did put on a couple more kilos. So ultimately I ended up with only 2 kilos off my frame. So that wasn't, as a loss, but it wasn't as much as I wanted. Now I am doing something different for my weight loss, and I have lost 6.5 kilos since starting that. I've got another vlog that I'll share with you all around what I'm doing with that. So make sure you stay tuned for my next vlog. I'll share that in the next couple of days, and I'm really excited about what I'm doing because it's giving me some really great results. Okay, so the next thing was around reducing my inflammation and calming my hemochromatosis. And I'm really happy to report, guys, that as a result of the elemental diet, I had some pretty significant changes to how my body was coping with the hemochromatosis. And I've just got some figures which I'm going to refer to, and I'll pop this up on the screen just to give you some comparisons. So in May of this year, I did a blood test, and that's really when the alarm bells started to ring with my doctor and I, because she was like, oh my gosh, these figures are really not great. So my ferritin was at 170, and my saturation was at 74%. So that is like really, really high. In terms of where it should be, for the reference range for your ferritin, it should be between 15 and 165. And your saturation should be sitting at 13 to 47%. So I was at 75%, which is seriously high, 74%. I then went into a real kind of focus around good nutrition, eating a diversity of plant-based foods. I did a little bit of herbal SIBO treatment, but not a lot. I did 1 round. And then I retested at the start of the elemental diet, and my ferritin had actually increased to 244, but my saturation had decreased down to 53. So I was going in the right direction. Then we retested at the end of the elemental diet. Now, my doctor asked that I wait for 2 weeks upon reintroducing some foods because she wanted my gut to be in more of its normal state than straight out of a 2-week fast. So I waited the 2 weeks, and my ferritin was 188 and my saturation was 40%. So my ferritin is still over what it should be, but it had come down considerably. But the really great thing was that my saturation was now back in the normal range, and my GP was amazed that I had had such a significant change in such a short period of time. She's like, I never see this with people with hemochromatosis. Whatever you were doing, keep doing it. Now, this doctor that I see for these kind of general blood tests doesn't treat me for SIBO. She's only just starting to learn about it now because of me. So I was really happy with that. So it showed that the elemental diet really helped calm the inflammation. Often the inflammation from SIBO can cause these very inflammatory responses with a condition like hemochromatosis. So for me, it's incredibly important that I keep on top of my SIBO, because I know that a SIBO flare goes hand in hand with a hemochromatosis flare, and I don't want to be putting my organs under any more pressure than they already are. And then the final thing, the SIBO itself. How did I do? So I've got my SIBO results here, and I will put these up on the screen. When I first tested when was this? So in February of 2018, I retested for SIBO after having a pretty ordinary Christmas and noticing a lot of my gut symptoms had returned. My hydrogen was higher than it had been in the past, but it took a little while for it to show. So it really only started to jump up at the 60-minute mark. So this is the test results from February. And I'll put the full screen up so you can see them. My methane was pretty much non-existent. I had, up until this point, never been methane dominant. So I wasn't surprised to see those results. now for the results post the elemental diet. And what my SIBO doctor and I decided to do was, instead of testing immediately after the elemental diet, we would wait until I had returned from South Africa, because then that would give us a clear picture of what was happening in my gut once I had fully reintroduced foods. Before I share the results, and I know I'm keeping you in suspense, I just want to talk about something I did whilst doing the elemental diet, and also when I was coming back onto foods. And I went and had my first colonic. I had two. I had the first one right at the end of the elemental diet, actually on the day I started reintroducing foods. And it was fine. It wasn't the most pleasant of experiences, but nothing really bad happened. There wasn't a lot to come out because not a lot had been in there, but it was, an experience. And they were really eager for me to come back. So I wasn't so eager to go back because I felt like, I don't know if I ever want to do that again, but I relented and I went back for a second treatment a couple of weeks after I had commenced eating food again. And this experience was completely different, and it was absolutely horrible. Within a few minutes of the water going in through the tube, I started to feel really uncomfortable, and I was saying to the technician, I really don't feel very good. I feel a lot worse than last time. I'm getting some pretty strong abdominal cramping. Whilst he was doing the colonic, he was giving me a pretty strong abdominal massage, which was at times like borderline excruciating. And I felt as well he wasn't really listening to me. He seemed to be in a bit of a mood. I don't think he was having a good day. And it got to the point where I was in so much pain, and it felt like things were blocked, like we were trying to force, literally, something up a tube and it couldn't go any further. And it started to feel like my whole large intestine was just about to burst. And I begged him and said, please, you've got to stop this. I have to get up. I have to go and sit on the toilet. I feel absolutely horrible. I feel like something really bad is about to happen. And he was like, okay, it's going to finish it early. And I'm like, I don't care. Let me get up and get me off this table, get this thing out of me. This is awful. And just as he started to release all of the water, I said to him, I feel like I'm about to have a really bad accident. And sure enough, there was this enormous release, this huge kind of build-up of pressure that I'd been feeling released. And it was like a volcano erupted. I won't go into the details. I'm sure you can imagine what I'm talking about. It was horrific. But I wondered if, given I've got so many adhesions around my ileocecal valve, was there something happening at that juncture between small and large intestine? It felt really unnatural and really uncomfortable. And so I got my SIBO breath test results back after the elemental diet and after South Africa. And as you can see, I haven't cleared my SIBO. I've still got SIBO. But what is really surprising to me, and this is why I've talked about the colonic, is that I have never had methane SIBO, ever. I've always had hydrogen SIBO. And now I've got reasonable methane numbers. And in fact, my hydrogen really didn't do anything until the 100-minute mark, whereas right from the start of the test, I've got methane. I've never had it before. I've been at 2 parts per million or 0 parts per million or 3, nothing high. I get up to 41 parts per million. So it's, I feel like I might have inadvertently given myself methane-dominant SIBO by this really awful colonic, and I'm really questioning whether, when I felt incredibly uncomfortable, if it was because I was experiencing water going into the small intestine from the large intestine, which it shouldn't be, and I pushed up bacteria that wasn't living there. I guess I won't know for sure, but that's my hypotheses. So, what next? Well, the thing I always think about first when it comes to SIBO treatment, particularly with people like me, the chronic cases of SIBO and the relapsing cases of SIBO, is first and foremost, how do you feel? Because we can do a whole bunch of tests, but it doesn't necessarily tell us how we're feeling. So guys, I feel fantastic. I feel so much better than I did. My gut feels a lot calmer than it did. I've been really conscious with my nutritional program. I'm really focusing on my health and my sleep and my stress, and I feel great. I think I look better, my eyes are clearer, and so even though I've got this test result that's saying that I've now got methane dominant SIBO, I don't really feel it. So I'm just looking at what I'm going to do in terms of my next round of treatment. I'm not going to do the elemental diet. I don't feel that that was a brilliant option for me. I've had such a strong reaction from a blood sugar perspective to the sugars in the drink, but I am looking at doing some longer fasting. So I do 24-hour fasts regularly. Now I'm looking at doing 2, 3, 4, 5-day fasts as a way to really give my gut a break. Also, the continued treatment on my adhesions is a real priority for me, so I'll be doing that. And I may well do some herbal rounds as well. I'm just waiting to see my SIBO doc so we can formulate a plan. So was it worth it? Well, I think it was. I really enjoyed the actual experience. Now that I look back on it, I'm really proud of myself for going 14 days without food, given I'm such a foodie, and I'm glad that I tried it. You know, you don't know if it's going to work for you until you try it. It wasn't without its challenges. It was definitely a challenging experience. And if you want to see what it was like for me, make sure you go back and check out all of my vlogs on the elemental diet. I documented days 1 through to 14, and hopefully that will give you an insight of what it's like to do. So there you go, guys. There's my summary. I'm sorry it was a bit long, but there was a lot to cover. If you've got any questions, make sure you hit me up in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and let me know if there's anything else you would like me to cover for you, because I love doing these videos for you. I'm Rebecca Coomes from The Healthy Gut, and I look forward to sharing in my next vlog what I'm doing about continuing to lose weight once I've put it on with SIBO. See you soon, guys.